Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking another look at the all-new ONEXFLY. Now I originally did a first look video, and that was before they launched their Indiegogo, but it is live now, so we do have prices and tiers and everything like that, but it was actually funded in 5 minutes. Now given they didn't set the bar super high, only at $10,000, and I like companies that do this. They're not looking to make $1 million off the bat to go ahead and produce one of these. They're really kind of getting a feel for who really wants them so they know how many they need to manufacture, how many they need to make. And right now, they're over 3,000% funded, which is awesome. And I gotta say, I have really been enjoying using this handheld. Now, if you're not familiar with the ONEXFLY, basically what we have here is a Ryzen 7 7840U powered handheld. Very small form factor, easy to carry around, super light, coming in at 580 grams, which is lighter than the ROG Ally. A little hard to believe there because this does have a bigger battery. But yeah, I mean it is. It's actually a really nice device that they've come up with here. It's got a 7-inch, 120Hz 1080p display, which is absolutely beautiful. As you can see, it's got some RGB around those Hall-based analog sticks, and near the bottom we have these customizable RGB nameplates. Now this needs to be done from the factory, but you can get whatever name or whatever you want written on them when you order one from Indiegogo or their website when it goes live there. And the sound system here, in my opinion, is unmatched by any other handheld on the market. Personally, I thought the ROG Ally sounded good, and of course, yeah, it does. But this is tuned by Harmon, formerly known as Harmon Kardon, and the new speaker enclosures they designed here really let this thing kind of open up. It has some bass to it, super clean sound. I mean, it does sound amazing. Now, just taking a look at some of the quick specs. For the CPU, we've got the AMD Ryzen 7 7840U. Based on Zen 4, we've got a max clock up to 5.1 GHz, 8 cores, 16 threads. Since it's a new Ryzen 7000 series APU, we get the AMD Radeon 780M iGPU. It's based on RDNA 3, 12 CUs, and a clock up to 2700 MHz. Got that 120Hz ultra-thin bezel 7-inch 1080p display, which looks absolutely amazing. Those custom RGB nameplates down at the bottom, a 48 watt-hour battery, and you know the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally have a 45 watt-hour battery. At 15 watts, we can get around 110 minutes of gameplay out of this, and of course at lower wattages, you can get much more playing indie games. And with all of that tech packed into this handheld, I'd say the biggest question is, how much is the ONEXFLY going to cost? Well, if you head over to the Indiegogo right now, you can see that they've got a few different tiers. Early bird on a ONEXFLY with 16 gigabytes of 7500 MHz RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, $739. Taking it up to 32 gigabytes of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage, $889. 32 gigabytes of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage, $969. 64 gigabytes of RAM with 2 terabytes of storage, $1199. And finally, 64 gigabytes of RAM and 4 terabytes of storage out of the box, $1299. Of course, this is definitely looking pretty high here, but if you compare the pricing to all of the other handhelds on the market right now, given that we're getting 16 gigabytes of 7500 MHz RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, they're not far off at all from the competition, and I really love seeing these prices come down. Like I mentioned, I will leave a link to the Indiegogo in the description, but I wanted to test this thing out for you, and if you're interested in checking out my initial first look video, I'll leave a link for that in the description. But first up, we've got Forza Horizon 5, and around back we do have Hall-based triggers. These are fully linear, so we've got a lot of control, especially for racing games. You can feather that brake and gas, just give it whatever you need, and personally I really do like these for drifting and rallycross games. Forza Horizon 5 is my favorite racing game right now, just really awesome, and it runs absolutely amazing on the ONEXFLY. Right now we're at medium settings, 1080p, and I am using a little bit of FSR to get that frame rate up. At 720p, 30 watts, we can hit 120 Hz with this game. You do need to drop it down to low, but at 1080 medium with a little bit of FSR, I'm still getting an average of around 82 FPS out of this game. And with their new ONEX console software, we can adjust that TDP at any given time. We can change the RGB, resolution. We can even set up different fan curves for the built-in cooling system here. And with the latest update, we've got a full game launcher. This will automatically scan our default directories and download artwork, metadata, and information about each game. You can start them up directly from here. Next thing I wanted to do was just kind of show off this D-pad and Street Fighter 6. So here we have it at 1080p medium, and we're only at 15 watts. This game has definitely received a lot of updates and performs much better on these APUs now since launch, and I'm really glad that they've kind of modified this D-pad. I was afraid it was going to be the same one from the One X Mini, but it does feel a bit lighter, has a little more roll to it, and it works out much better than the older one did. Next game I wanted to test was Cyberpunk 2077. We're at 1080p low, 29 watts. Now in order to run this at 1080p on these APUs, we do have to hit up some higher wattage. At least if you want to run it at 60 FPS, but at 720p we can actually take that wattage down and get well over 60. So from the settings, we're just going to take it down to 720. Now on the fly, we can change that TDP. So I'm going to take it from 29 down to 20 watts. And we're going to see some really great performance here. We can even go down to 15, but I wanted to show you how far we could go over 60. We get an average of 76 FPS at 20 watts on the ONEXFLY with Cyberpunk 2077, 720p low settings. And since we have such a compact screen coming in at 7 inches, it still looks great here at 720. Everything we've taken a look at so far on the ONEXFLY is in handheld mode. And in handheld mode, we do have to worry about battery life, so we don't run it up too high. 30 watts won't net us much runtime, but you know, when we're connected to a power supply, you can run it on the built-in screen if you want to, but personally, I like connecting to a larger display, be it a TV or a monitor like this. Now, this is actually a USB Type-C monitor, or you can go with some type of dock. The ones that work with this Steam Deck, you can pick them on Amazon, will work with this handheld. And you know, since we don't have to worry about battery life, we can actually take that TDP up. I've actually been able to go up to 45 watts in dock mode, and it really does make a difference. From One X console, you can go up to 30 watts, but using a third-party app, you can take it up a bit more. And something like Red Dead Redemption 2 definitely needs a little more. And at about 40 watts with the ONEXFLY, we can get around 56 FPS on average with Red Dead Redemption 2, which is really great for an iGPU. I've got the built-in benchmark running right now, 720p, low settings, looks really good and it's very playable like this. And keep in mind, we're just working with the iGPU, but there's more that we can get out of this with an eGPU because the ONEXFLY does support USB 4 and it is running at a 40 gig protocol. So connecting a Thunderbolt 4 eGPU can really up the performance on this device in dock mode. You can use a larger Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4 eGPU, but what I've got here is one of the newer, more portable eGPUs on the market from GPD, known as the G1. It's got the Radeon RX 7600M with 8 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM. And this 7840U at even just 30 watts has more than enough performance when it comes to AAA gaming. It really comes down to the iGPU not keeping up with how much performance this Zen 4 CPU can put out. But with an eGPU, it really changes the whole dynamic. Right now, we've got Cyberpunk 2077 at 1440p medium settings. Give you a look here. You can see we are at medium and 1440p. This will give us an average of around 76 FPS over USB 4. We could run this at around 54 FPS 4K medium settings, or we could go up into the 90s at 1080p. And of course, you could connect a more powerful eGPU if you wanted to. I do have the Razer Cortex dock, and most of the time I have a 3080 Ti in it, but I really do like what GPD has done here with the G1. And to tell you the truth, I've gotten a more stable connection given that this is a true USB 4 eGPU as opposed to Thunderbolt 3. So overall, the ONEXFLY is definitely a solid handheld. Really love the design here. You can use it in dock mode at a higher wattage because we really don't need to worry about battery life like that. It does support an eGPU over USB 4. Very comfortable, 580 grams, coming in lighter than the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally. It's also got a bigger battery coming in at 48 watts. 110 minutes of runtime at a 15 watt TDP, a beautiful 120 Hz, 1080p IPS display. And the sound system here is one of the best that you can get in a handheld. The new enclosure design and the fact that this is tuned by Harmon gives it some amazing audio quality. So if you're interested in learning a little more about the ONEXFLY, I will leave a link to the Indiegogo and their official website in the description. Remember, you can get this up to 64 gigabytes of RAM and 4 terabytes of storage out of the box, but your cheapest option is going to be that 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. And with this one, I'd love to hear from you. If you're planning on backing this, or you've already backed it on Indiegogo, or maybe planning on picking one up when they're officially available on their website, let me know down below in the comments why you chose this one over the others on the market. Also, if there's anything else you want to see running on the ONEXFLY, leave it down below. And like always, thanks for watching.